There comes a moment in your research when deadlines are everywhere. Like you have to submit your paper, to revise the old paper that reviewers send some comments, so you have to do that. Then you have your side project that needs some attention. Then you have another conference abstract that you have to send by the end of the week and so on. So you have this on one side, and on the other side, your progress is painfully slow. So you feel that you are moving not in slow motion, but in extra slow motion. So how to deal with that, and what can one do when you are in that situation? I have to say that this video is probably one of my favorite ones because I love talking about that topic of how urgent things feel during a PhD and how there is this general culture of everything has to be done right now. And it's sort of funny how we know that, like deep down, we know that research requires time. It requires space to think, to reflect, to have this mental space to play a little bit with your ideas. But on the other hand, there is the real world in which you have all of those deadlines, all of those things that have to happen by yesterday, basically. So how does one stay sane when there is, on one hand, research that it requires certain time, that is slow, that takes time to reflect and to think about it, and on the other hand, you are basically putting off 5 different fires at the same time while dealing with your PhD research and your thesis and submission and deadlines, collaborators, supervisors that disappear and that don't care about your work and so on. So this video is inspired by a conversation with a client of mine because we were talking exactly about that feeling of urgency that is often present, I would say always present during the PhD, that you feel that everything should be done faster. So one of the things that is quite frustrating is when you know that if you want things to be done faster, but on the other hand, research takes time and it takes a certain amount of failures until you get to the thing that you want, until you realize that this is what is the thing that you have been searching for. So how do you stay sane in this environment? The thing that helped me most during my PhD, and this is a technique that I also use a lot when I coach my clients, is to make sure that you provide some sort of outline and structure to this uncertain thing that research is. So you know that you cannot control your experiment, you cannot control your bacteria. Like if you are working with bacteria, you cannot control your bacteria and how they are going to react in a certain condition. You cannot control all of the variables of the data. Like data sometimes behaves in ways that we wouldn't expect. You cannot control whether your supervisor is going to answer your email or send that feedback on the paper that you've been waiting for months. You cannot control your collaborators, whether they're going to send you the data that you've been waiting for months and weeks. But you can control how you take care of your research and how you measure your progress during the PhD. So oftentimes, many clients of mine tell me that their research feels like a mess. And the research, in 99% of the cases, research feels like a mess, is because you do not establish certain boundaries to contain that mess. And when I say boundaries, I mean structure. I mean, okay, what is it that I have? Like you basically do writing up the inventory that you already have. Like what is the figures that I already have? What is the data that I have already saying? How can I put all of that together into something that will be maybe the seed for the next paper, for the next chapter of my thesis, or for my thesis in general, for a conference talk or something? So those things are the things that are going to bring you structure in that very, very slow at one side and very, very time constraint and pressure cooker situation that research is. So what helps here is to really not think about the pressure and the deadlines, but actually move forward in a way that feels like moving forward. Because the reason research feels painfully slow is because we do not measure the progress that happens in that slow motion. Because we call it slow motion because we don't feel that a failed experiment is progress. But if you write down a few thoughts, a few conclusions out of that failed experiments, it will feel more like progress, and then you will sort of lift that pressure off of your shoulder and be able to continue with your research in a much more, I would say, relaxed and structured way. So this thing, like putting some order in your research, making sure how to connect the dots, how to structure it all and package it into something that makes sense and that you can finish, write and submit, is exactly what I help PhD students do. So having said that, I will leave a link down below where you can schedule a completely free intro coaching call with me, where you can discuss with me exactly those things, like when your research is a mess, how to move forward, how to structure all of those things and connect the dots so that you can actually write something that makes sense, finish it, submit it, and defend it. So having said that, I hope that you found this video useful, and as always, see you in another video in the next few days. Bye bye.